It's a new year. 2023 is here. Putting on my list of minis. New season, let's cheers. Let's talk about the future. Let's talk about the past. Time to get on the Not Your Average Joel podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Not Your Average Joel. So today we are actually not in my room. We are here actually at Shadow Lake here outside of Caitlyn's church. Today is a very beautiful area, very peaceful. It's my first time here. So I thought it would be nice to come out here and just see what it's like out here, and because this is like the location where she usually does her side of the recordings from. So it's definitely nice to see this area. So for everyone that doesn't know by now, I'm sure everybody knows Caitlyn by now. This is about like her 8th or 9th time on here, so it's definitely good having her here, and I definitely am glad that we were able to meet in person for the first time in a long time. It's been years, so I'm glad that we were able to meet. So thank you for being on this episode today.
I'm excited. I'm glad that we're able to do this in person and hang out.
Yes, absolutely. And with this weather being a little bit warmer, I think it's going to feel a lot more comfortable out here, because I know we were having some cold weather here not too long ago. So yeah. I'm glad it warmed up for us to do this episode.
Me too.
So today's topic of the day is actually going to be on a topic that I feel like everyone deals with from time to time, and it's going to be on balance. So I know a lot of people are busy with life nowadays, like whether you're in school, whether you're out of school and you got a job, whether you're a mom, a dad, there's always different areas that people are juggling, and there's struggles that can come with those, but there's also moments where I feel like people got a good grip on like certain areas on their life. So we're going to talk about some of the areas that we may be struggling with when it comes to balance, or things that we are pretty good on, like when it comes to balance, and maybe even giving some advice, whether it's giving advice to ourselves on the things that we struggle with, or giving out on advice on the things that we have like gotten down pretty good. So I guess that would actually be my first question is like, what are some areas that you feel like you are struggling with when it comes to finding like the right balance and like trying to juggle everything in life?
All of the above.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like so much going on in life right now with school and with church and with choir and getting ready for our Good Friday service and our Easter service. And I'm over the prayer team for the worship ministry, and I have family stuff going on. I have a house to take care of, all that good stuff. And it's like every single one of those things are good things, but trying to balance it all and fit it all in, with homework and demanding classes and stuff, it's hard. the balance of it is hard. I think the biggest struggle area for me is school and home life, because those are two that tend to be the most overwhelming for me. So those are the ones that are harder to balance for me, I think, because I like to put them off until absolutely necessary.
Yeah, I could definitely, back when I was in the school days, I used to like put that at my highest part of the list where it comes to something I'm struggling with when it comes to balance, because it does take a lot on you when you have to deal with your school life, and then also deal with like work on top of that, because you gotta make money and get your way through college. So I know that's got to be really hard. So I could definitely at one point say that I could relate to that. I know for me currently, I think the hardest thing for me, like as far as balance in life, is probably trying to balance, like, I don't know, I guess just making sure I spend like the quality time with the Lord. I think it's probably my hardest thing, if I'm going to be honest, especially recently. Like I feel like I keep myself busy when it comes to like, I love to travel and I love to like see the world. I like, getting to meet with people that I haven't seen in a while. I like to do these podcast recordings, and I like to even just see family and spend time with them. But I feel like recently, I feel like my time with the Lord is getting kind of I guess, skewed from all of that, just because it seems like by the time I get home from the end of the night, I'm very like just worn out, and it's like I don't feel like reading, because then I'm gonna feel like if I try to read, then I'm like too tired to like comprehend what I'm reading, and it just seems like it's a bad like cycle, and it happens every day, and I keep telling myself that like I want to do better in this area, and then I don't make any progress with that. So I feel like for me that might be the hardest. That and like even like prayer time, I feel like it's kind of the same situation. Like I will pray, I'll start praying like right there before I go to sleep, and then I end up falling asleep, and then I wake up like, wait, did I just pray? Like, did I already say amen? Like, or so that's like something that I've been struggling with too, and I wish that I can do better in, because I know, of course, like having the Lord number one priority in your life is like the biggest thing, and of course like Jesus is like the meaning of life. So like if I'm using my life towards things that don't point to Jesus, like not saying that family and all that's bad, but like if I'm putting other things or other people before the Lord, I guess that's like the hardest thing for me currently that I'm balancing with, and I definitely do want to make better changes in that area. So maybe me doing this recording today will give myself like accountability to do better.
That's also an area I struggle in. I guess it's just with everything being so busy and so hectic in this season right now. It's so easy to be like, I just don't have time for this. I just don't have time for this. I've got other things I've got to do. I've got other things that have to be done. And, you know, in my mind, a lot of times it's like, I don't have to do this, but I really need to do it. Like it's not a, it shouldn't be an option. It should be one of those things like going to work. It should be one of those things where I have to do this. It's a have to, just like going to work, it's a have to. But in my brain, I make it optional, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you make a very good point that like, you know, many people do almost make it seem like, you know, like it's a choice to like read your Bible, spend the time with the Lord if you consider yourself a Christian, but it should be something that we need instead of something that we want. So I think that is a really good thing to point out, that like for our spiritual journey and for our like growth in our relationship with the Lord, I think that quality time with Him is like really important. And too often, we think that we can just get through life, try to take care of all these other things, which is good to take care of other things, but if we're not taking care of our spiritual health and like our time with the Lord, it's everything that we're doing besides that, it's almost like it just doesn't compare to the Lord. So I think we just gotta remember to prioritize the Lord. So I guess it's a good reminder.
Well, the Bible says, I'm pretty sure it's in Ecclesiastes 3, the Bible says that those who labor, if they're not working for the Lord, they labor in vain. And if I would just think that, if I would just remember that, I'm working in vain when I'm not putting God first, and when I'm not putting Him over these areas of my life that I struggle the most with. If I would remember to put Him first, then these other areas would pale in comparison. They would probably fall more in line and be a little less overwhelming if I would put God first and over those. And I just forget. I just don't.
And yeah, I definitely have fallen short in that area as well. And I'm sure that many people that may be watching or even listening to this that consider themselves Christians fall into that same exact situations. And because it's so easy to fall into, it's just I feel like the enemy likes to keep us busy in a way to keep us from even focusing on the Lord, even for a few minutes, because like He'll throw something else in our life, like, oh yeah, you got to go meet up with this person here in about 20 minutes. Oh yeah, you gotta after that you gotta go, like, go back to your house and like go grab this right quick. And then it's like He'll keep things running in your head to where it's like you never start even thinking about the Lord. So I think it's important to like remember that He is number one in our area, and number one in our life in every area. And that all glory goes to Him at the end of the day.
That's exactly right. My pastor actually has a saying. It's kind of become something our whole church has adapted, but it's He gets the glory, we get the joy. and it's really hard to get the joy when we're not giving him the glory in those areas, because it becomes work. It becomes like a job instead of doing it for God.
Yeah, that is very true. So, I think if everybody has that perspective, I feel like we would be in an even better and a more balanced lifestyle for sure.
Yeah.
So I know, like, towards the end of this recording, I know I'll ask about like some advice. So that's already some good piece of advice to give. To live a more balanced life for sure.
Yeah.
And so, I guess my next question. Or actually, no, before I get to the next question, I actually do have another area that I feel like I struggle with. It just came to mind. So I think, like, as far as like finances, I feel like I can do better in this area as well, because there are like certain areas where, like, I guess I like to travel, but then sometimes, if I'm going to be honest, I do put things on a credit card, and then it kind of builds up to where, like, you have to add that credit card payment along with the things that I already have going on. Like, since I'm out of school, I have student loan debt, and then with like, even with just bills in general, whether it's my car payment, like car insurance, all of that. So I feel like I'm just having to, I don't want to get to where I'm kind of feel like right now I'm somewhat in an area where, like, I'm not really living paycheck to paycheck, but in a way kind of like getting close to that. I don't want to get to that area, because as much as I love to travel, I don't need to live like well beyond my means. I guess that's like the saying. So
Yeah.
I feel like when it comes to finances, I feel like I can do a lot better in that area and try to find more of a balance, and like trying to figure out which is more important. Like, would you rather, I mean, like, it shouldn't be a question, but like, would you rather be paying off your car, which is what you should be doing, or would you rather go put this big amount on your credit card and then like have that all, a bigger debt to pay? So I think, even like finances, I think that might be another area that I feel like I can find better balance on.
That's a good point. I know, like, right now I'm only able to work part-time because of school and stuff, and like right now I don't make enough money to pay my bills. Thankfully I live, when I started back school, I started living with my parents, and they help me out a lot. They make sure that I've got gas money if I need it. They're willing to help me out when I'm financially lacking in certain areas, which I'm thankful for that. But I could definitely manage my money better, I think. I spend a lot of money, running around, like, in gas and stuff, running between coming here. I live, almost 30 minutes from here, and then going to school 3 days a week, and I live about 45 minutes from campus. And then on Wednesdays, I'm gone all day. On Wednesdays, I come here for Bible study, and then I go to school all day, and then I come back here, and it's about a 40-minute drive from school to here.
Oh.
So I'm kind of all over the place on Wednesdays, and then so I could definitely probably manage my money a little bit better and not use so much gas.
yeah. I mean, it is a lot of driving for sure when it comes to just even the things that you explained. And even if I wasn't working from home, like, I think I would probably be in the same exact situation, because the office where I was going to before COVID happened was like a good 35 minutes, and you have to go through downtown, so you might as well multiply that by 2. It's like over an hour.
Yeah.
So it was always constantly like basically like almost an hour and a half to 2 hour drive, you would almost say, because it's just so much traffic and just so much gas being used. And even, like I mentioned, as far as like traveling, I like to go on different road trips. So like I'm usually the driver most of the time, like maybe 90% of the time I'm the driver. So, and which I don't mind, getting us from here to there, but it's like, it can still financially, I guess, be a good bit when it comes to gas and all that. So, and one thing that you did mention that I would love for like society to like normalize is people living with their parents still, even in your late 20s, early 30s. I think way too many people. I know this is almost going off on a tangent, but this comes up when this is like a way to financially balance out, your lifestyle, because many people do like to put down people that still live with their parents that are like older than like 25, and I feel like there's not enough people out there saying that it's okay to live with your parents and be older than 25. I think just because for one thing, rent's a lot, and then like I just don't care to go to an empty home and just I feel like that would just remind me that like I don't have a wife, I don't have kids, so it's like at least I have like parents to go home to, and so I like that reminder that like I'm going home to people that I care about, and that love to have me here. They're not the type of parents that like once you're 18 you gotta leave. So I'm glad that I have parents, and it sounds like you definitely have parents that are in that same position where like you're welcome to be here for sure. So I definitely want that to be more normalized, because not enough people sound like a lot of people like to put that down, and I would like to hear more encouragement and positivity around that.
Well, it's hard. It was hard moving back home when I started back to school. Like, I love my parents, but going from having the freedom to kind of go and do what I wanted, and to being back home with them and having to balance the life with their being under their roof again, and now I can't just go where I want to. Now I have to kind of it's not that they expect me to ask permission, but they want to know where I'm going to make sure I'm safe, and they want to know just when are you going to be back home. They don't say, oh, you got to be home by 11 o'clock, but when are you going to be home, so we'll know when to look for you, or so if you're not home by whatever time, then we won't be worried about you. And one thing, my parents have never worried, like if I'm not home by like, and they were like this as a teenager, like if I'm not home by midnight, they're not worried about it, but they will be texting me, hey, just checking on you, make sure you're okay. I never had a curfew as a teenager because my parents didn't want us flying home. They would just ask us to they would expect to know where we were, who we were with, and they would say, okay, it's midnight, you need to start heading to the house or whatever. So they were always pretty chill about that. But moving back in and still having to have that, having to have those conversations again on where I'm going, and, like coming on Sundays, I spend every Sunday afternoon out here in this beautiful area, and I usually am doing homework or whatever, but they want to know, are you traveling home today? Or are you coming home today? Because it is a pretty good little drive to my house, and they just want me to be safe. Not necessarily that they're gonna be like, oh, you can't go do this, but just making sure that I'm okay and not in a wreck or anything like that. So and having to have that respect for them to be like, okay, this is your house, I'm under your roof, so I need to follow these rules, and letting y'all know where I'm at and stuff, and finding that balance again of as an adult taking advice or heeding advice versus having to be obedient to every single thing. So that is very true. Like that you may be on a path to like getting more financially balanced as far as like moving back in with your parents, but then there is that level of like trying to find the balance with your parents to where like, of course, like you said, that they trust you and they know that you're going to let them know where you're going to be at, but like just trying to get back into the situation of not having somewhere by yourself, like to where you don't have to worry about those kind of things. So I can see where you're trying to solve one thing to get balanced more, and then like another thing will pop up. So it seems like that's how life goes, and it's like we're just having to try to adapt to it to the best of our abilities. Trying and failing.
Yeah, that's true. It's definitely a work in progress for sure.
Yeah.
So I guess my next question that comes to mind is what are some areas that you feel like you've got a pretty good grasp on, if there is anything that you feel like it's like you feel like, oh, okay, I feel like I got this down like pretty good.
Honestly, the worship ministry and prayer team, like as much as the prayer team, because being the leader of the prayer team is the hardest, because like there's so much that goes into that. Like it's not just praying, it's also caring for the people in our ministry. So like we have a green room for I've never understood why it's called a green room, because it's not painted green, but for whatever reason that terminology is that. But we keep snacks in there and drinks and stuff, and part of being a leader for the prayer and care team is making sure that that's stocked. And no, I don't pay for it myself, the church does pay for it, but just making sure that that's stocked and kept up. And for the people that are here, because our band gets here at 8 o'clock on Sunday mornings, and they don't leave until 12. Right now they're having a 2-hour practice getting ready for Good Friday and Easter. They practice on Wednesday nights for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that. So I mean, the band and praise team does a lot, even more so than the choir does, for leading our church and worship. And so as the leader of all that, making sure that people are being prayed for whatever needs they have, being aware of needs that people have beyond prayer. Like if somebody needs a meal prepared for them, or if a couple just needs a night out, and somebody babysitting for them so that they can have that time, keeping the green room stocked, and knowing what the guys and ladies that are using that room, what they like. It was hard to begin with, because it was like, okay, let's fill this out and see if we can figure out what everybody likes. But like I feel like I have a decent handle on that. Like getting into the groove of doing it was a little hard, but it's probably the most balanced area that I have. Like practicing the music and stuff for Good Friday, and I don't know, maybe the reason it's most balanced is because it's the most fun for me. I don't know, but that stuff is taken care of, and it's a joy for me to take care of these things, to do these things, to make sure that people that I love are getting, they're being prayed for, and me and my team are praying for these people and reaching out to these people. And sometimes the prayer is something as simple as, and I say simple, but it's something like, it's just been a rough week, can you pray for me? And then sometimes I have a family member. I was one of these people that had this prayer request. I have a family member who has cancer, or a friend of mine, one of the people that we're praying for right now, her best friend is in a bad custody battle right now. And it's hard on them. Another one is having issues with their children's behavior, and there's so many different things that can be prayed for, and so many different ways to love on people and just encourage people. And it's so fun. It's just so fun to be able to do those things. So I definitely feel like that area, the worship ministry, prayer team, is definitely the area that I'm most balanced in, because I'm learning to delegate things to the rest of the team, but I'm also learning that I can have fun. And one thing that, and I don't know if I should say this, one thing my worship pastor told me, he was like, delegate the things that you don't like doing, and that way you have time for the things you do like doing. So, and that's been, but it's because there are other people in the team who enjoy the things that I'm not that much of a fan of. They like those things. They're better at those things than I am. Mm-hmm. And so learning to delegate has been hard, but it's definitely been very rewarding and helping me in balancing those things.
Yeah, I think that's a really good area to have a balance in, because for one thing, I know it's God's calling on your life, and you're the purpose that you have in this church that you're currently going to pray for those, or to be in need for, those that, or fulfill a need that like somebody may need, whether it's a prayer or like you said, if someone needs help with a babysitter, or someone just to take care of the kids, or even if you just wanted to send out like a gift card to somebody, like, somebody that may be financially struggling or something like that. And having fun in the process, I think that's what makes it even better. And I think, like you said, when it comes to the balance of it all, I feel like that's like the most like positive outcome out of it is when you have a right balance in that area, and like you're having fun while doing it, not doing it because you feel like it's like part of the Bible Belt that like, oh, you have to do this. And like then you're almost in a way grudgingly doing it. But I feel like, when you do it from the heart and you like are really in it for the right reasons and you have like the right intentions, like the Lord's gonna like provide in that way and like help make that even more, like bring more peace to that situation as far as not having any stress or any like issues with that area. So, and I love that it's specifically like in regards to like the church that you currently go to. So I think that's a really neat, like a really good answer and a really neat answer, like when it comes to like your position here in the church and like what you're called to do. So.
Yeah, I love it. Like the Bible says not to quench the spirit, and I never realized exactly what that meant until the idea of this prayer team was brought to me, and I looked at my worship pastor and was like, I can't do that. I can't do that. And like you really get this almost like a grieving feeling in the spirit that's within you, because it's like God's like, I want you to do this, and you're saying you can't do this, and you're literally grieving the spirit that God has put inside you. The Holy Spirit, you're grieving that because God's like, this is what I want you to do here, right now. I made you for this. And there might be something later on down the road that this is preparing you for, but you need to do this now. And when I first told Pastor Mike, I said, I don't know that I can do this. I don't know what you want. I don't know how you want to do how. And he was like, I have no expectations. He was like, I have this idea and I want you to take it and run with it. And to begin with, that was so hard because I had no clue what that would look like. But thankfully, with the team that I have, it has turned into the biggest blessing I could. And I know that we throw the word blessing around a lot, but like it has, like I have a sense of purpose and fulfillment because of that ministry, and I love it so much. Not just the choir and singing, but the prayer ministry specifically itself. Like that is just, it's like when I'm doing those things, it's like this is what I'm made for. This is what if I don't do anything else in this life, this is what I'm made for.
Yes, amen to that. I love that. And I love that you were honest about that. That like initially, when you were like presented with this opportunity, you were thinking like, I don't know if this is for me. But then, like the Lord is basically telling you like, look, like there's a reason why this is what I want you to do in your life. And like now that it's happening, and you're like actually seeing the other end of that, like and just seeing how all of this is being revealed, I think that it's amazing. Like when you're obedient to that, even when you initially don't want to do it in the moment, I think that that it ends up like paying off, and it brings a more, like we've been talking about, a more balanced lifestyle. And I think that's really important. So I'm glad that you were obedient, and that it's leading you to a more better lifestyle when it comes to like your calling to this church and just your purpose in life. Is of course we're called to to be the hands and feet of Jesus and to spread the gospel. And even with our actions, that can almost be a way of spreading the gospel, even to strangers outside of this church. So, I think, having that meaning here, and then even like using that to be the church outside of the church. So I think that's amazing to just follow that calling and to find, that right balance, especially with our spiritual journey.
Yeah. You're right.
So
what about you?
So for me, I feel like there's two areas where I feel like I'm doing pretty good on. I'm sure there's still more improvement, but for one, I think, because you mentioned about like you have fun with like what you do. And I guess that's why this first one I'm going to mention is pretty easy because it's fun.
Yeah.
And that is like family time. Because I feel like as I've gotten older, like I feel like I used to have like a huge circle of friends when I was younger, maybe my early 20s. But now as I've gotten older, that circle has become a little bit smaller. So like my time with the family is a lot more frequent.
Yeah.
So like on weekends, I'm usually with the family, and people are always like messaging me like if they ever want to like do something. I'm like, oh, sorry, I'm with family. And they're like, you're always with family. But it's like well, I mean, these are the people that care about me, that want to spend time with me, and that like don't that want to be there with me because they actually like want to be there, not because they felt like, oh, okay, well, let me meet up with this person and then I'll see you like again in about a few months. So I think just like having the right people around you is super important. So I think like for me, family has been pretty easy with most of my family. There's some family members I don't see as much, maybe only during the holidays or whatever, but for the most part, like most of my family, it's pretty easy to like keep that balance in that area and like making sure that like I guess making known that like I'm glad to be around you, like I'm glad to have you in my life, even if I don't actually say those words, but just like being in the moment and being present with family, I think is like really important. So family is one thing for me that I feel like I've got a pretty good grasp on. And then the other area, at first it wasn't something that I've gotten a grasp on or a good balance on, but I think it's going to be like work. So like at first, of course, just getting used to like what I used to do before my current job was I worked at a grocery store. So I was like so used to that for 9 years of my life. And then once I got out of college, I was looking for a full-time job and got that full-time job at Coke. And at first the job was like really hard to get used to and to get the hang of, and then you had to like all these emails come in and you're like, oh crap, like which one do I start on? Do you start on the first email that comes in, or do you start on the one that has the more urgency to it? So I think now I've kind of gotten a little bit better with that area, and there are still moments where I'll slip, in those moments where I think like, oh crap, maybe I should have done this other one first because it may not have taken as long or something like that. But I feel like for the most part, those are two areas that I feel like I do pretty good in, but I'm sure there's room for improvement even in those areas.
Well, I didn't think about work, to be honest, but like work, I feel like I know what I'm doing at work, so like it's easy because I've been at the pharmacy for this year will be which I probably won't make it to December because graduating and everything, but if I make it to December, it'll be 9 years that I've been at the pharmacy. And like I love my job, I love what I do, I love my coworkers, like, and a lot of times it's that daily grind of, oh my gosh, this day's forever. But like on Friday I had school and then I went to work and it was chaotic. It was a chaotic day, but like it wasn't overwhelming, and I think it's because I worked, you work so long in an industry like this, in a store like this, that when those crazy day comes, you're like, okay, this is what we're doing, and we're gonna do what has to be done first. Patients who are here, ones that are here, we're taking care of those first. There's people on the phone, we take care of those first. And then everything else is set to the side until we get to a spot where we can do those other things. And I mean, at one point when I was there, we had like 70 something e-scripts on our e-script system. And by the time we went to leave, and I didn't get there till like 2:30. By the time we went to leave at 5:30, which is when we get off, it was down to like, I think we got it down to like 6 left on e-scripts before the end of the day. I mean, and we were just, and that's with customers still coming in, and it was working like a well-oiled machine. It was really, it was, and just seeing stuff like that, like, it's really hard. It can get really lopsided when you're in a new job or in a new career, but I feel like work is pretty balanced. I don't get to work as much as I would like to because of school, but when I'm there, I feel like I can bang it out. I can do what I need to do because I've done it so much, and it's easy to just stick the course when you're at work, and when you know what you're doing, and when you know how to do what you're doing, and you're just going with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of people stay in jobs and stuff. Like, not saying that my job is bad at all. Like, I know people who stay in jobs and careers that they don't like, because it's just a consistent, I can go to work, I can do what I need to do, and I can leave, and there's no change, there's no imbalance. There's some sense of equilibrium.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're at a job that you've been at for a while, you can equalize things out. It's like, oh well, I know that if this area where e-scripts are overwhelmed, we can balance that out, or I know if it gets crazy, then we can handle this over here, and this will be fine. Having the ability to think ahead on that helps with that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good point to make, that like having that mindset, when it comes to our jobs, and also like you mentioned, and doing something that you love to do too, I think is really good. And yeah, once you get at the beginning, we know it's hard, but then when you start like actually doing that same task over and over and over again, it almost becomes just second nature, that you already know, like when one issue happens, you're like, okay, well, here's the problem. So you start troubleshooting, and then you figure that out. And then even for me, like recently, or in the last year or so, we had a lot of like new responsibilities put on us, and it was very like hard to balance that. And I think a lot of that had to do with maybe, I guess, like the position that I was in, that like I've gotten up to like a higher level ever since then. Mm-hmm. So I think that came with more responsibilities on top of the stuff that I already had. So I think just like trying to find that balance, it took a little bit to kind of get used to, but now I think I'm finally in an area where I can say that it's gotten a lot better, because I first, like even at the beginning of this year, it was a bump on the road where I was just thinking like, oh my gosh, like there's so much that is thrown our way, like our team's way, and it's like we're almost taking other people's responsibilities, and then you start wondering like oh my gosh, this is almost like too much to handle. But then once you kind of get the hang of it, you're like, okay, I'm used to like all of these, coming my way, all these issues coming my way, and I know how to resolve these issues. So I feel like currently, and my answer may change here in a few months, but right now, I do want to say that work is going pretty good for me, and I hope it stays that way. But I know once football season comes around and like holidays, I know it kind of gets even busier during that time of the year. So as of right now, I'm going to say work and family, I got a pretty good grasp on, but there's definitely many more areas that I got to work on.
Same.
So I guess my last question that comes to mind is maybe like giving advice for like people, like I guess for like the areas that I feel like we are excelling in pretty well. Like maybe what is like some good advice to give to even ourselves for like the areas that we struggle with, and to other people that maybe struggling with certain areas of like having a more balanced lifestyle. Maybe what are some, I guess, good practices that we should like do, I guess, since we talked about like practice, like with our job, and it becomes almost second nature, and like you say, you become a well-oiled machine and you just get things going. So like what are some good practices to have a more balanced lifestyle?
I think that if I could give advice to myself, and my stubborn self actually listened to it, it would be Jesus first. Like I said earlier, God gets the glory, we get the joy. But if we're doing this daily grind, if we're working and doing these things, and we're not doing them for the glory of God, then like the Bible says, we're laboring in vain. And I honestly, a lot of days I am laboring in vain, like especially when it comes to like schoolwork and home life, like trying to balance all those. Like it's hard, it's hard handling those things. And so I think for me, I would just try to remind myself, Jesus first, talk to Jesus first, let Jesus talk to you first. Reading God's word, that's one way how God speaks to us, and is through his word. And if you don't read it, how do we know what he wants us to do? How do we know how he expects us to live? the guidelines that he gives us through Jesus, how do we know if we don't, we think we know, but then it comes to find out, oh, that quote that I thought was a Bible verse is definitely not in the Bible. Like a lot of people say, God won't give you anything that you can't handle. That's not true. I mean, if you think that, and there's a verse, I wish I could remember what it is, that a lot of people attest to that. It's where they say that, it's where it says in the Bible that that we won't be tempted further than what we can bear. Okay, but that doesn't mean that our hearts and minds won't sometimes be overwhelmed by the chaos in the world, or by so many things. Like I know last summer for me, there was 1 week, well actually probably about a span of 2 weeks, where it was one thing after another, after another, after another, after another, and it was so overwhelming. And it was because, well, probably not because, but partially because God wanted me to remember that I needed to be turning to Him, not stress and not worry and not other people. Like I had somebody quote that verse to me, that we won't be tempted, more than we can bear. And I honestly, and I could be wrong, but the way I read that and the way I understand that is temptation with sin. God will always provide a way out of sin, and that's Jesus. If you feel like you're tempted to tell a lie, instead of telling that lie, turn around, Jesus, help me to speak the truth. Help me to speak the truth, whether it be telling someone something and having to tell it out to them in love, whether it be an admonishment, however we need to do that. Help me to tell the truth versus this little white lie or this big lie that could cause problems. And that's just one example. But I do believe that a lot of times God will give us more than we can bear when it comes to life, because it reminds us that we need Him. Like those 2 weeks, had I not had Jesus, I spent more time in God's Word those 2 weeks than I had in a while, because I just needed God to speak to me, to speak His truth and His life over me. And when people look at me and tell me God's not going to give you more than you can handle, oh no, that's not true. And if you tell yourself that, or if you tell other people that, you're dimming the gospel, you're dimming the truth of the gospel. And that's, you got to be careful about that, because that's what Satan's all about. Satan's not about whether or not it's true. Satan's about dimming it in your eyes so that you won't see the truth. And so if I could give advice to myself, to you, to anybody else, it would be Jesus first. Read your Bible, know your Bible, so that when Satan throws these lies at you, like, oh, God won't give you more than you can handle, you can say, that's not what His Word says. That's not the truth.
That's really good. I think putting Jesus first in our lives is like super important, and that even just comes with things in general, like even when we talk about like with work. For me, I think one thing that's helped me is that I prioritize like what does need to be done first. So like when it comes to our relationship with Jesus, which should be number one over everything, I think that's super important to keep Him first, to read His Word like she said, because there's a lot of false teachings out here, a lot of false teachers that will throw out these, like, they sound very nice when you hear it at first, but then you're thinking, wait, is that biblically, like,
they sound churchy, but are they biblical?
Yes, exactly. So that too many people will fall into these, because I've even heard that quote before too, about the you can't, the one about what is that again?
God won't give you more than you can handle.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that one. Yes, it is lies, because because of this, it's not biblically, it's not in the Bible. That's just this straight up truth to it. So I think just reading into the Word and really understanding everything that's in the Word is our way of knowing Jesus more, of course. So that's like spending more time with Him. So yes, of course, definitely number one thing is putting Jesus first in our lives. And then even when it comes to those things that should always come below, when it comes to like our actions with work and or spending time with family, is making those things a priority, and like and putting some things that aren't as important down there on the bottom, to where like when it comes to traveling, eventually I do want to move out, so then move out on my own. So then I start having to like prioritize, like, okay, well, long term, like as much as I want to travel here, like maybe I should not travel here yet, and wait until I can financially afford it instead of putting it on my credit card. So
That's why I don't have credit cards.
yeah, it's
Credit cards.
yeah, credit cards they can get pretty messy because it's just so easy. You see that you have this amount that you can use, and you're like, oh yes, like I want to use all that, and then it's like, nope. Then it's like you owe and the interest.
I still have to pay that back.
Yeah, it's like, no, I gotta pay it back. So yeah, you definitely have to think long term when it comes to these things in order to even have a more balanced lifestyle as well.
I just accidentally lied. I do have a credit card. It's a Lowe's card, and I don't use it often. It is paid off right now.
Yeah, so there you go. As long as it's paid off, I think we're good with that one. I do have one credit card that's paid off. Now my other one, on the other hand, I hope to have it paid off by the end of the year. But yeah, that is something I need to make more of a priority. And even like I'm trying to think like long term when it comes to traveling, like I probably, if I'm gonna be honest, I have a good maybe like 7 or 8 trips that I have this year planned.
Ooh.
But I'm thinking, next year I need to lower that amount, because if I want to like be in a more financially healthy lifestyle, I need to, narrow it down. Even if I just get it down to 5, just try to like lower it down a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah, just a little. Even though I love to travel, but it's like at the same time, if I ever do want to move out, if I ever do find the right woman, and if I ever do have a family, I got to prioritize this desire that God may have for me at some point in life. But right now, as a single person, I can even make those priorities even now to prepare my heart and mind for those moments. So yeah, I think that making those priorities is really good. And then another thing that I don't do that maybe other people may do is like have yourself like a planner, I guess, or like a schedule kind of thing. I feel like a lot of people may for me, I just keep everything done in my notes. Like I know when, okay, well on the 2nd, this money's going to come out to St. Jude's that I pay for every month. Well, on the 15th, this money's going to come out for something that I have over here, and then my car payment's due at the end of the month. So like I have it in my notes. So I guess in a way it's sort of like a planner kind of thing. But like some people may feel a little bit more at ease having a planner or having some kind of schedule of like having it day by day, like, okay, well at this time I have this going on and all
love
this.
my planner.
Yeah, so it's good to have a planner if you're going to actually use it. I know for me, I've gotten planners before, I've never written one thing in it. So I think for me that's like the thing that I probably should consider looking into. So I think there's like some really good areas and good advice that I could even get to myself, is maybe give myself a planner and think more long term when I make different choices, because these small choices could long term, I guess, affect you in a way. So I think that just even making those small little choices and like having that mindset of being more prepared can lead to a better lifestyle of balance for sure. So yeah, I think that's basically going to cover our topic on balance. I think this was a good conversation. I hope that people got something out of this. So hopefully if you enjoyed this, and you even have feedback on this, you could even let us know what are some areas that you want to find more balance in. So anyway, I definitely appreciate you inviting me out here to this beautiful place, and I'm glad we got to do this. Thank you for being on this episode.
Thanks for inviting me on it. This is fun.
Yes.
We need to do another one out here soon.
Yes, absolutely. Now that we're getting warmer weather and that like the summer is going to be coming up here, and I'll definitely be looking forward to being out here a lot more often and just getting to experience this nice area where we can come and just have a good episode on all of these different topics that we have in mind here later on in the future too.
Yeah.
So everybody, if you enjoyed this episode, whether it's on YouTube or whether you are listening to this on any of the podcast streaming platforms. Definitely, let us know, your feedback on all this, and I definitely appreciate your support there in any of those platforms. So anyways, everybody, I hope y'all have an amazing rest of your day or night, depending on when you're watching or listening to this. And I will see y'all on the next episode of Not Your Average Joel. Talk to y'all later.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody that took the time to listen to this episode of Not Your Average Joel. My podcast is available not only on YouTube, but also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcast from. I also have an Instagram page where you can see outstanding moments, behind the scenes, and even a funny moment or two from each episode at Not Your Average Joel Podcast. If you want to get in contact with me, then my Instagram page is probably the best way to do so through direct messaging. I appreciate any kind of support that you have given to this channel, whether you are a guest or a listener to this podcast. Once again, I thank y'all so much, and I look forward to sharing more of my life with y'all on the next episode of Not Your Average Joel. Goodbye.